as they come off the final turn looking for a green flag. And with Nick Fenoro, the starter, looking at the field as they come down, he gives them the green. And the 1992 IndyCar season is underway with a drag race. Michael Andretti leading Al Unser Jr. into the first corner. Rick Mears drops into the third place. The field safely through the first turns. Now Al Unser Jr. gives Michael some pursuit. That's Bobby Rahal in fourth, and Mario Andretti running in fifth. Nice clean start. Rick Mears is in sixth place. Now for the first time, they turn onto the Esplanade, the roadway that runs right alongside the beach. The Pacific Ocean is only a couple of 100 yards over to their right as the battle for the lead is underway.
It looks like Al, Paul, wasn't happy with Michael getting the jump on him in the start. He's all over him right now.
Well, the Galmer car that Al Unser Jr. drives, of course, he put it on the pole, but he did so with a setup that was very, very loose. I'm sure he can't race with that setup.
Well, I don't think so, but you saw them both come onto the back straightaway there, and they both threw the car sideways, so they're not being real gentle with the cars early in the race, that's for sure.
It's one of the things we've certainly seen in the practice here is they are really able to manhandle the cars and pitch them around.
Whoa, you saw Emo in the background of that shot just about lose control of that automobile.
It looks like it's slippery for all of them. Fittipaldi got it sideways. Michael kicked the back end a little bit as they came off the corner before that. And of course, the situation here in a tropical area is you could have a light shower in one section of the track and the sun shining in another. And the real problem I would think that would create for a driver is you're not sure what you're going to find.
Well, you're not, and so you got to tiptoe your way around that situation. But it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be a factor later in this race.
Well, Gary Gerald is pit side. Gary, it seems like it's pretty slippery out there.
Paul, I have to wonder if it's not because of the shower. It's sunny right here in the pits, but yet rain is falling. And in fact, a lot of the teams are already getting the rain tires close to the wall in case it becomes a much harder downpour. It's just spitting, but it is consistently moisture falling from the sky at this time.
Well, Gary Gerald, while we have you on the line, the indication was, in fact, we saw it, Danny Sullivan on the first lap he took on this course put rain tires on to cure them. Do you think any of the other teams did that?
I have not seen that be the case, Paul.
And there you see the rain to kart safety vehicle from Michael Andretti's onboard camera. But of course, under the rules of kart, they can continue racing and are doing so, though they are all racing at the moment with the slick tires. And if that rain would continue and this course would become damp, then you'd have to have some rain tires pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's all prepared for rain tires. You see Michael get rid of one of the tear-offs early. This is early to be getting rid of the tear-offs in the kind of race like this.
Especially considering he's running in the lead, doesn't have the exhaust of anybody else in his face.
No, it's just the weather outside that's causing his problem right now.
The order remains static. The rest of the field coming through and seem to have come into single file. The one car, that's Tony Bettenhausen, with a quick turn inside in that slippery section of the course, and he was nosed in against the wall. It was difficult to tell if he touched it. Let's go back to the pits. Here's Jan Vikas.
Thank you, Paul. Tom has been talking about whether the teams are ready with rain tires or not. You can actually see the rain coming upon this wheel that we have ready.
Now, they've been running up on the curbs. You saw that there. And as they got deeper and deeper in practice, Tom Sneva, they seemed to get braver and braver on how far they were going to put a wheel up on the curbs on those chicanes.
Well, a lot of times it's show and tell. You know, you got to feel your way around, see what you can get away with, how much of the curb you can clip off without getting the car out of shape. And they've experimented with that throughout the practice session and pretty well know. It's interesting to see here. You can see the new Ford pull away from the old Chevrolet, but it looks like little Al gets into the corner a little deeper, maybe a little better brakes than Michael at this point.
So taking the lead on the start of the race is Michael Andretti. Look at John Andretti as he darts inside of Scott Pruitt to try and grab a position. The race, the first one of the IndyCar season, is underway. To catch up to a very fast Michael Andretti with that new Ford Cosworth Power in last year's chassis. You think it's fast now? The team says, boy, once we get it in that new chassis, it's really going to be quick.
Well, I know. I talked to Carl Haas, and he was ecstatic about that. They felt that the Ford was going to give an aerodynamic package that would be better. They haven't been able to utilize the aerodynamics that that smaller engine is going to give them. They're excited about the new car, and if they can keep even, Carl said, at this point in the season, they'll be smiling later on, they think.
Get an idea there at how good a lead these two cars have been able to pull out. Look at the trail all the way back to the third place car as Michael and Al Unser Jr. continue to fight. This is probably a prediction of what we are going to see throughout this IndyCar season. Safety crews, by the way, still on the course as they clear the car of Tony Bettenhausen's. There comes Fittipaldi through in third place. Fittipaldi with that brand new Chevrolet, they call it the Indy Chevy V engine.
Again, it doesn't look like they're getting away from Emo too far, and Emo's probably conserving the brakes. I don't see Little Al doing that. Little Al's had to try to get into the corner harder to keep that gap close with Michael, so it'll be interesting to see if he's going to have brakes later in the race.
Michael and Al Unser Jr. work around Tony Bettenhausen, so his disabled car, they got pointed straight, and he is back in the fight, though he's just gone a lap down to the leaders of the race. And once again, Michael uses the curbs. On board with Michael Andretti now. This will give us a good opportunity to take a look at this course here at Surfers Paradise.
You can see a few raindrops from the in-car camera, but not serious enough to really affect them at this point.
He makes a turn now onto the Esplanade. He just made a series of turns that took him off of the Pacific Highway that runs inland along the coast here. Coming up to top speed, about 170 miles an hour down the backstretch, a little faster on the front side. Through one of those chicanes, again back up to speed.
Heading toward the chicane that caused most of the trouble last year during the race. Again, they tried to open the vision here. They get in a little harder, but on the exit, the wall is right there in their face.
Snaps it down 2 gears, then up 2. Now a tight corner. This turns him back to the west. You can see some of those rain-laden clouds just off to the west over the great dividing mountains here of Australia. And a turn onto the Pacific Highway, which will bring Michael alongside the pit area as you have completed a lap here on this beautiful circuit at Surfers Paradise. 6 laps are complete. Michael leads it, followed by Al Unser Jr., then Emerson Fittipaldi. Mario Andretti runs in 4th. Ray Hall is 5th. Rick Mears in 6th. Eddie Cheever runs in 7th place. The defending champion, John Andretti, in 8th. And Scott Pruitt is in 9th, followed by Danny Sullivan. Seems to be that the strategy here in the first race of the season is beginning to play out in terms of let's find out what everybody can do, but for the moment, not put our car in contest until we find out what it's doing.
Well, that's what I thought should have been the strategy, but you can see Michael getting off the corner there, and he throws it sideways, so they're using up most of the car early in the race.
No one else in contest as Michael begins to inch away from the second place Al Unser Jr. Through the chicanes now. Very, very quick on the backside. Faster yet, 182 miles an hour down the front side of this course. And the people are jammed in the grandstands around this track here. Beautiful circuit, well prepared. The second year that they have raced here at Surfers Paradise.
Paul, you can see they've tried to resurface parts of the racetrack here to smooth it out, but you can still see Michael's head bob around quite a bit, showing the stiffness of the chassis in this in the Indy cars.
First, second, and third. Michael, then Little Al, then Emerson Fittipaldi. You can see the relationship right there. As again, Little Al begins to close down, and it looks like Fittipaldi's beginning to make some headway.
I think Emo is coming. He sort of felt the car out and maybe full of fuel. He wasn't quite as quick as the other two, but as they're running the fuel out, Emo seems to be coming towards the front.
Well, as Michael leads it, John Andretti's crew has indicated that they want to bring their car in, the defending champion, and replenish that car. And there is John Andretti in the pits. Change of all 4 tires. So what's that tell us?
Well, I'm not so sure. They're not putting on the rain tires, so that isn't the problem. It's too early to be a normal pit stop. They've got some kind of adjustment they're trying to make. I didn't see too many chassis adjustments attempted to be made, so he just might have had a tire going down. Well,
John was pretty well holding his own in 8th place. Here is Mario Andretti. He runs in 4th place. You get a glimpse of Bobby Rahal just behind him, and Rahal on board now as he closes in on the great Mario Andretti. Boy, I love to listen to those engines as they power up down the backside here.
Well, they're having to use all the gears available. They're 6-speed transmissions. They're shifting about 60 times per lap, so that's over 4,000 shifts before this race is over.
All right, let's go down pit side once again. Gary Gerald.
And, Paul, it was a flat rear tire for John Andretti. That's why the unscheduled stop. They're frustrated. Now they've got to try to earn it back on the racetrack. But a flat rear caused that early run into the pits.
Mario Andretti, he runs in 4th place. His son is at the top of the order, the defending IndyCar world champion, Michael Andretti. While his cousin, John Andretti, was running 8th, had to drop into the pits their way through. What Gary Gerald was trying to report to us was there is a report now out of Al Unser Jr.'s pits that little Al got on the radio and said that it seems that Michael is a little down on horsepower on the long straightaways. Now, is that a product of gearing? Is it the new engine, or is Michael in trouble? What do you think?
Well, it's hard to say. I would say they have to be a little conservative this early in the season with a new engine combination. They're probably not testing the engine to its full capability. They want to make sure they finish, and reliability is a big factor.
And I guess we need to clarify that one. What little Al is telling them is apparently little Al is down on horsepower. Gary Gerald, are you with us now?
Yeah, Paul, we want to clarify that situation. The radio report as we got it was that Al was saying Michael was pulling him on the straightaway, meaning that Al is down on horsepower, and that plays right into what we had anticipated. He has the 2nd generation, as it turns out now, Chevy power plant. It's not the newest one. They figured they were down on horsepower. We've heard different reports, as much as 40 to 50 horsepower less. But that would appear to be the case based on that radio report that we got from Al's cockpit.
Well, the battle continues at the front of the field. You see 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Michael, then little Al, and then Emerson Fittipaldi. 10 laps are complete. Mario Andretti runs in 4th place, and Bobby Rahal runs in 5th. Let's go to the pits again, Jan Beekes.
When you're talking about Michael Andretti pulling away from Al Unser Jr., remember that in order to make that more horsepower, they have to rev it to higher RPM.
John Andretti came into the pits, so it's very likely that those two got together, loosened the wing, and finally a piece of the wing has completely left that vehicle.
Well, John and Rick Mears were running together on the course, but now Rick Mears has to struggle with this problem. Though it's never quite as serious as it looks with the front wings. We saw Al Unser Jr. win a race with one wing just propped all the way up at right angles to the ground.
Well, Paul, especially at these street circuits, aerodynamics aren't as key as they are at a high-speed oval like Indianapolis. The corners are very slow, and as you go through the corners slow, obviously aerodynamics aren't as big a factor. So I think that's why it might not even hurt, and sometimes it helps the car if it loses some front end down the course.
Let's go down. A report on Rick Mears. Here's Jan Beekes.
Paul, we just checked on the computer here in the Penske pit, and they have a window to stop from lap 19 to 23. They have a monitor as well as radio communication. They know that he's lost the wing. They are probably going to hint on the early side of coming and bringing him in so they could dial some more downforce into the front of the car to take care of that. But they're not planning on making a stop now because they don't want to miss that fuel window. They still want to make it on 2 stops.
Well, 15 laps are now complete. For a second there, you got a glimpse of Barry Sheen, the great motorcycle champion, who is now working as a commentator for Channel 9 Australia. And he is trackside here, as is Jack Brabham, Sir Jack, the great world driving champion. The Australian version of A.J. Alan Jones is here. He lives in one of these buildings on the edge of the course. You got a flickering light On Michael's indicator, that's the fuel light.
Well, it's very possible that's the fuel light. The window's still a little ways off for a normal pit stop, but again, that's that new Ford engine with high RPMs. It might not be getting the mileage they were hoping for.
I would think that if I was Carl Haas in the Newman Haas pits or one of the team managers, that I might be real conservative if that light clicks on.
Well, especially this early in the season, they're not sure what could happen with the Ford Cosworth, how much it'll pick up, and they don't want to run it out of fuel because that's hard on a motor that's turning 13,000 RPM, and all of a sudden you stop feeding it fuel. They don't like that.
16 laps are complete. The scheduled distance, 65 laps. Here at Surfers Paradise, Michael Andretti continues the lead as he flashes over the line, completing lap 17. Al Unser Jr., then Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, Eddie Cheever, Bobby Rahal, Scott Pruitt, then Danny Sullivan, then Rick Mears with that wing problem. Let's get an update on that now, Jan.
Well, what it is, Paul, it turns out that he did make contact with another car. The teams feel that it could possibly have been Tony Bentonhausen. They're not sure, but it was from contact from another car going through traffic.
You know, we had speculated John Andretti simply because they were running together on the circuit, and then John had to come in with a flattened tire. But we saw Tony Bentonhausen with a little half spin early in the race, and he's gotten back into the action since then.
Yeah, but I don't think Tony was behind that group when that should have happened. So the corner workers should have been indicating to Rick that Tony was in the racetrack sideways. I don't know if it was Tony or not, because they would have had a whole lap to prepare to get up to Tony.
On board now with Eddie Cheever as he works around the circuit. Car number 9 running in 5th place. And one car off by the edge. And looks to be Ted Prappis. Driver out of the car, but a smoking back into the car might indicate that the engine is done in that machine.
Yeah, that's the new Chevrolet. They had their, not the new Chevrolet, the old Chevrolet that they were, giving their right arm to try to get. It's an engine that might be obsolete by the time the season's over with, but they sure wanted it last year.
Well, we'll confirm the identity of that car. Difficult to tell. It had the bright day-glow colors like Prappis's car has, but it looks to me that Prappis is still active on the circuit as we watch Eddie Cheever. Formula One driver for a decade, now in the Indy cars, enjoying himself. At the front of the field, it is still Michael Andretti. And Al Unser Jr. chases Emerson Fittipaldi. Touch the fuel on board with that new Cosworth XP engine, the Ford Cosworth. This is Scott Pruitt in for what appears to be routine service.
It does. It was interesting to note Rick Mears and the RPM he had to keep in the motor when he was just sitting there getting the tires changed. A lot higher than the old Chevrolet when they're in the pit. So I don't know if that's an electronic problem they're worried about or what it is.
I wondered, it almost sounded like a throttle was stuck when he first came in.
Well, it did. I doubt if that's the case. It just might be the electronics and needing to know that the engine isn't going to die on him.
So we wait for Michael Andretti to make his stop. Let's get an update on Bobby Rahal. Here's Jan Bikas.
Yes, Paul, Bobby has been in and out. A quick stop for Bobby Rahal. Very interesting. At this end of the pit lane, very few changes on the cars. So they must be able to. Let's go back to you, Paul.
We're on board with Bobby Rahal, and here comes Michael Andretti for his stop. Gary Gerald?
And indeed, the butterflies for this pit crew, the first real test of a brand new season, being challenged and met right now. We're looking to see if they make any adjustments. None at the front. They clean some debris out of the right radiator entry side pod. Fuel hoses disengaged. 15.5 seconds. That's about 2 seconds slower than Unser's stop. Let's see what it translates to on the racetrack.
So Al Unser Jr. on the main stretch as he flashes over the line. Michael Andretti pulled out. And we'll see how they come into position as they come down to the end of the road. As one of the Penske cars, Fittipaldi, comes back into the pits, that would be an unscheduled stop.
Paul, and Michael's stop, you notice they had the tires changed quite a while before they got all the fuel in the car. Now, that either means that the fuel, the tank was emptier, or it just wasn't taking on fuel quite as quick as it should have been.
By the way, those folks keeping track of A.J. Foyt, who indeed did start this race in the number 17 car. It belongs to Derek Walker as we see Eddie Cheever in for a stop. And Foyt has pulled the car off and retired from the race. But boy, Tom, it was a great moment to see A.J. Foyt out there, especially with A.J. Watson as his chief mechanic.
Well, that was a combination that A.J. had long ago in his career. I wouldn't be surprised if we see A.J. back into his own pit now and then helping Foytek out get through the rest of this race.
I'm sure he will. Let's go down pit side again and Gary Gerald.
Well, Mario Andretti made his stop, and it was much longer than they would have wanted. They had a problem because they changed the wicker bill, that little wing or strip of metal on the top of the rear wing, and they had a problem getting it released and back in. Paul?
Well, Eddie Cheever started to pull away, and then the car faltered. Now they pulled the machine back, and they're trying to restart it. But, Tom, it's taken a long time.
Yeah, they've got some kind of problem. It looks like it might be gearbox related, but this is not good for Eddie. This is going to make a long day for him.
You can see from the onboard camera, they're reaching down into the cockpit, readjusting the gear shift. Also, we mentioned Emerson Fittipaldi in the pits. Here's Jan Beekes with an update on that story.
Paul, the reason that Emerson Fittipaldi came in was because he ran over his air hose. What happened was during that first stop, he clipped the air hose, and by kart regulations, has to come in for a stop and go.
So it was an in and out for Emerson Fittipaldi. At the front of the field, it is still Michael Andretti being chased by Al Unser Jr. And you can see the relationship after the pit stops. Those cars still remain exactly as they were. So what small advantage may have been gained by the crew in the Gallus organization, Michael Andretti still is out in front, though Little Al is just a little bit closer.
Yeah, he's definitely closed up some, and now you can see they're getting into traffic, and this place with traffic could be a real problem for one or both of the race drivers.
Young Buddy Lazier in the Fabrizio Barbaza there in the 30 car as Michael comes up behind him, and I think Michael expected that he was going to get past on that one.
Well, Barbaza's a good IndyCar racer, and he isn't going to give ground unless he has to.
Barbaza finally lets both first and second place pass. You get a good view of the chicane there. And Michael Andretti, of course, in his mind, he lost the single point given for pole position. That went into the hands of Al Unser Jr. And Michael would like to lead the dominant number of laps in this race so that he can pick up the point for leading the most laps. So right now in the championship fight, it is Al Unser Jr. who is leading the points, but look at Little Al. Now he begins to mount a charge, and it looked for a second like he might make a move on Michael, but it looks like he got a little hard on the brakes, too.
Well, he might. You can see they just went around a Scott Brayton on tow behind one of the safety vehicles, and that can be a real problem for these drivers out there. That big vehicle going a lot slower than the race speed can be a real hindrance to the race driver.
All right, an update on Eddie Cheever's situation. Gary Gerald is now with Tom Anderson. They're on the final lap before coming back to green. The course is clear, not only of Scott Pruitt's car, but Gregor Wojtek, his A.J. Foyt-owned machine, had to be cleared from the course. Here's the schedule for the Indy cars for this 1992 season. You may notice that the Meadowlands does not appear in this schedule. And the reason is because next year we'll be able to properly say from Gasoline Alley to Broadway, because they will be racing on the island of Manhattan in New York City. So that race will disappear for this year. Loudon, New Jersey, a nice new race for us this year. Of course, the next two races at Long Beach and at Phoenix, leading up to the Indianapolis 500. Then Detroit, then Portland. That new race at Loudon.
That's in New England, not New Jersey.
Did I say New Jersey?
Yes, you did.
To pick up with Michael Andretti still in the front of the field after the first stops and the first yellow of the year. And there's the green flag. To down the Pacific Highway, chased by Al Unser Jr. The battle continues at the front of the field. Fittipaldi sits there in third.
Looks like Vassar made a good move on the start to get by and get a position at that point.
That light-colored car, Jim Vassar, the Stars and Stripes machine, he darted out, made a move. You can see the Little Al's decided to keep his hat. Fittipaldi chases. There's Jim Vassar. And Little Al looks for racing room to the inside of Michael Andretti.
Vassar's actually made the biggest move in this race. I think started about 17th up to about 10th at this point.
Vassar with a magnificent run. He runs at the front of the field, but of course, he is not in the order at the front. He's a lap behind, but still he's trying to keep up with those leaders.
tell you, the big news for that yellow flag situation was for Emerson Fittipaldi. He had to stop and go penalty on his pit stop. He lost 8, 10, 12 seconds, but with that yellow, he was able to close up that distance that he lost by the penalty, and now is right back in the hunt.
And of course, both the Penske cars made 2 stops during that session. That gave them an opportunity to have a little more fuel in the tank when they came back to the green flag, so they can go a little deeper into the race.
Yeah, that's just good strategy. It didn't hurt them track position-wise, and now they've got a longer window. They can go farther until they have to make that next stop. Both
Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr. closing right in behind Michael Andretti, whose car continues to dominate the run here, but Al Unser Jr. seems to want a challenge at every opportunity now. 30 laps are complete as we approach the halfway point of this 65-lap event here on the Gold Coast of Australia.
You can see how Little Al really closes the gap getting into the corner. Again, the brakes or the balance in that car enables the car to get in the corner a lot deeper. Again, he's complaining that he loses Michael on the straightaway. That new Ford has got some horsepower.
And back up to speed they go as the green flag comes out. And Al Unser Jr. mounts a challenge on Michael Andretti. But Michael, hard on the brakes going into the corner, gets there first and keeps Little Al back.
Little Al had a great run on him, but Michael can get the car into the corner about as deep as anybody in this sport.
And of course, when it's wiggling around like that, when he's all over the brakes, you don't really want to poke your nose alongside.
No, there's not too much room for error, but Little Al's putting a little pressure on right here.
Fittipaldi runs in 3rd place, but that fight for the lead again separates just a bit. Sullivan, despite his half spin earlier, you can see him. One car separates Sullivan and Fittipaldi, and Sullivan runs in 4th.
Danny maybe has been able to make a few adjustments to get the car up. That looked close getting into that chicane.
Whoa, Little Al was going to try, came down to the inside, but Michael slapped the door shut.
Slapping the door shut, it got Little Al's attention. He lost a couple car lengths at that point.
A little momentum lost as Al Unser Jr. falls back now. Fittipaldi with Eddie Cheever just behind him. But, of course, with Eddie's problems, he is not running on the same lap with the leaders. Back at the front of the field. I think Little Al at least got Michael's attention because Michael now seems to try to pull away. He doesn't want Little Al up that close to him.
Well, it's interesting when they come off of yellow or the start of the race, when the tires are cooler, it looks like Little Al can get a bit of a run on him. But then as the tires get heated up, both having the same amount of wing in the car, it looks like the horsepower gets away from him.
Michael Andretti flashes across the line and picks up the point for leading the most laps the race, now past the halfway point. So there is a 1-point even tie in the championship. Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr., they have battled this way right from the green flag through 2 caution periods. And it is a battle of engines as well. The Ford Cosworth XB sitting up in Michael Andretti's car, and of course Chevy power in that new Galmer chassis. Al Unser Jr. there. Little Al started on the pole, but Michael jumped the lead right off the bat. Let's go pit side and Gary Gerald.
Oh, we just got a quick word with Rick Gallus. He's always the colorful one. I said, are there any concerns? He says, we're always concerned when we're not in the lead, but they like the way the car is balanced. They're hoping to get to lap 47 or 48 before their final pit stop. There's some smiles and a lot of optimism down here as they stalk Michael Andretti.
Well, I would think that they would more than like it. They have to be more than pleased. A brand new chassis and performing that well here. Of course, Michael has a brand new engine, and it's running perfectly at the moment. So the fight continues on this.
We heard a report from Al that Michael was getting away from him on the long straightaway, so obviously the engine's got the horsepower. Now they've got to go to work and try to develop the reliability.
Michael Kranifus and all the people from Ford are here. There you get a look at that new engine, which will be in a new chassis when they move to the next race at Phoenix, Arizona. Michael staying in the car, I would suspect, well, now that looks like they're going to take him out. I was going to say that maybe they'll try to put the car back out so that they can find out anything new if they can get that engine going again. Let's go to Gary Gerald once again.
And Paul, as we see Michael now get out of the cockpit of the car where the crew tells us it's a broken header that turns out to be the terminal problem. The day is done for the defending IndyCar champion. We'll try to get a word with him in just a few moments.
So the header not really is part of the exhaust system, not really part of the engine.
Well, if that's the case, you know how the PR is for these engine manufacturers. You know, a lot of times it's a transmission, a header, or whatever. If it is, in fact, a header, that's not a big, serious problem. But the fact remains is that Michael Andretti's out of the race.
You're not suggesting that occasionally they would put a new spin on what may be wrong, would you?
Well, you know, you just never know out there.
You never did that.
PR seems to be a big factor in these races.
If I remember correctly, you as a driver were never at fault for any accidents, too.
Well, that's part of the driver's handbook. You know, you've got to have all the excuses.
Back at the front of the field, which now is this car, the number 3 machine of Al Unser Jr. But in close pursuit is Emerson Fittipaldi. And by the way, not too far back is Danny Sullivan in 3rd place. Let's go back to the pits. Michael Andretti is with Gary Gerald.
Well, Michael, this is not the scene that I know you wanted to reenact. You wanted Ford to be in victory lane for the first time in 20 years. What was that problem?
It looks like a broken header, which doesn't have anything to do with the engine. It's just a header exhaust pipe broke.
Tell us about how the day was going as you were trying to protect that lead.
Getting better and better. I think at the beginning I was struggling a little bit, but as the track got better, my car seemed to adapt to it very well, and in the end there we were just starting to pull away about a second a lap on out.
For position as well, as Ray Hall came off the pace a little bit, Rick Mears closed in, so did John Andretti, the defending champion, and so now it becomes a fight for 4th place. And look at that. Ray Hall slowed down greatly. He is definitely off the pace. Sounded like the engine shut down as both Mears and John Andretti come past and pick up positions.
Yeah, it's obvious Ray Hall's not slowing down because of pit orders. He's got some kind of problem. It's either low on fuel or some kind of engine problem.
This would have been the one team that we thought would have made it through the race. Gary Gerald.
Al Unser Jr. waves off the drink. They're not going to make any chassis changes. It's fresh rubber. They hope this is the last stop, but with threatening skies, the rain tires are here at the wall as well. It is, of course, the regular tire that goes on. He continues to flip the throttle to get all the fuel. This is not a quick stop, Paul. They're still waiting. I can't see it. May be a problem on the right rear. Indeed, it is.
They struggled with the air wrench on the right rear, Gary.
And now we can hear that wrench go to work, and we're past 30 seconds on the stop for the leader in the pits. He may no longer be the leader.
Danny Sullivan was running in 2nd place, and the crew is laid out so that Danny Sullivan can make his stop. Let's go further down the pits to Bobby Rahall's pit in Jan Beekes.
Al Unser Jr. flashed the flag. Now Bobby Rahal is underway. Bobby Rahal, even with slowing, got right behind. We had Al Unser Jr. go by, and Bobby Rahal ducked right in behind. Look at the difference in time that was spent here in the pits. So remember, it was Jim Prescott that came from Gallus that's now right here in the Rahal Hogan Racing that made that quick stop.
And for the moment, this is the leader of the race. Number 18, Danny Sullivan, the new teammate to Al Unser Jr. Again, this is a new Galmer chassis.
Yeah, it is the Galmer chassis, both at the front. It's surprising to see an air wrench problem in Little Al's pit early in the season. They've got all winter to go through the equipment. You'd think the equipment would be top-notch, first class, and in great shape for the first race of the season.
The other side of that, of course, is that they are a little rusty. Now, some of the teams actually will practice pit stops throughout the winter. I think Gallus is one of them.
Well, Gallus is one that does sort of an inter-squad competition. They try to keep the competition among the teams, and as Sullivan comes into the pits.
And here is Danny Sullivan coming in for his stop, Gary.
Brings a little bit hard, but he's right on the mark. This has been the surprise story. Sullivan had a crash on Friday that left him with a very sore left hip and back. Now he's down off the jacks and trying to get all the fuel in. He pulls away. This is much more like a regular Indy stop at 14 seconds.
And Danny Sullivan roars away, and this man picks up the lead of the race. It is none other than Mario Andretti. What an incredible day it would become if he could pick up the lead and win it. He has the lead now on the 48th lap of 65 laps, the scheduled distance here. Mario Andretti, again the new engine, the Ford Cosworth XB. The problem on Michael's car was not an engine. Little weld, I think, probably broke in the exhaust system. But Mario now has the lead of the race, but he has yet to make his second and final stop.
Well, he's going to be stopping shortly. The new Cosworth, with the horsepower and the RPM that we were concerned about for fuel mileage, doesn't seem to be a real factor because the Fords are beginning a good distance between pit stops.
So Mario Andretti, and you can see he runs all alone. He is well out in front of the second place car, which at the moment is Rick Mears out of the Penske organization. So Mario, how far can they carry that engine? They've done extensive testing. They know a great deal about what its fuel capability is, but they have never seen it when it has been racing solidly with somebody, and those conditions always change things a bit.
Well, that's what gives these teams with the big budgets the real big advantage. They're able to do the testing and development that they need to do in the off season, and you just can't beat testing. The more you do, the stronger you become as a team.
Mario Andretti, they had the tires laid out for him, but they pulled him back. Gary?
Indeed, Paul, they're going to go for fuel only. It's been 3.5 years since Mario's won an IndyCar race. They're pulling out all the stops. They want to see the man behind car number 2's wheel get the victory lane. They wait for the fueling. They're off 14.5 seconds.
And Mario Andretti roars back into the fight.
It wasn't fuel only. If you notice, they put a little bit of right front wing in that car, so you must have had a little understeer, and they're trying to correct that to make it a little bit quicker in the last segment.
And Rick Mears tries to make it to the pits, but he overshoots. Now he's going to try to find reverse. He gets it, backs out of the runoff road, and Roger Penske's watching this on television, and Rick's going to hate that.
Well, it's just, you know, small mistakes lead to big problems, and Rick just tried to get in a little bit too hot, locked up the front end, and slid through the runoff area.
And so with Rick Mears and his problems, the lead of the race falls to John Andretti, but he has yet to make a stop. Very much shades of last year when you consider that Rick Mears had the lead, ran off an escape road. John picked up the lead. Let's go to Jan Bikus.
Paul, there's a lot of drama here. You saw that Roger Penske saw it on the monitor. They're getting the rain tires ready. They may have had a call. And remember that Rick Mears had the last pit stop, so he has the latest window. If it keeps persisting to rain here, he could be and take that advantage, the final stop to get the rain tires. They're scrambling, trying to make that decision.
Well, Rick Mears was, in fact, the leader of the race, but John Andretti took over, being chased by Danny Sullivan. And look at Sullivan. There's the leader of the race, John Andretti, right now. But again, he is due for a stop, and in fact, the Hall VDS team has the equipment laid out, expecting the arrival of John Andretti at just any moment as he comes off of this lap. And there's John on the pit road. The crew is right there.
The leader's in, and it is raining, so it looks like they've got slicks out there. They're not even going to change the tires, so look at the rain in the back.
Over on the other side, this is on the Esplanade, and Tony Bettenhausen now must tiptoe. Jan Bikus.
We're here, and Rick Mears just pulled in Onco Emerson Fittipaldi. They are going for rain tires. It's not actually raining right here, but it is on other parts of the circuit. When the track is dry, they have to be very, very careful with these rain tires, so he has to be careful not to light it up too much. There he goes, smoking those tires. He's got to be careful unless it's really wet.
There's Vassar with a problem, as look at the rain coming down on the backside. The 30 car belongs to Fabrizio Barbazza, and Bobby Rahal, still running on slicks, has really cut the speed down. And the yellow flags come out all around the course. They will put the pace car out and will slow this race behind the pace car. Boy, look at that. Shades, what was the Indianapolis 500 when Bobby Unser won it last?
Yeah, but at that point, the race was over.
So now, with the double yellows out, look at Mario and Al Unser Jr. tiptoe around, while Rick now has his rain tires.
Probably
but the yellows are out. Wait, what's Rick up to here?
I don't know. It looks like a couple of them are still racing. They're not sure that it's a full course yellow possibly at this point, but this is the toughest condition when half the track is dry and half of it's this wet. Look at that.
I guess you could argue as there is Prappas with a quick spin right in the straightaway, probably as he was upshifting. And there is Buddy Lazier. They tiptoe their way around this track. Full course yellow. Rick Mears appeared to go around some cars under the yellow, and it is raining all around the circuit here at Surfers Paradise. Paradise at some time during this telecast?
I think we did, Paul.
I think if you live in the tropics and you know exactly what happens here, you'll get a squall line of intense rain come through. Usually, though, it clears up and dries rather quickly. If you've spent any time in Hawaii, you would be accustomed to that.
Well, these guys aren't thinking dry right now. I guess right before the yellow, we had 6 different leaders on the 6 previous laps up to yellow. But right now, they were looking for rain tires initially. I think they're looking for snorkels at this point.
What they are doing in race control, Wally Dallenbach is the chief steward, and Kirk Russell is operational director and everyone. They're going to bring the field around behind the pace car at least one more lap. Rick Mears is in the lead of the race. Al Unser Jr. is second. Sullivan is third. Mario Andretti is fourth. Emerson Fittipaldi is fifth. They're going to discuss this rain, which, by the way, has let up somewhat on the front stretch here, but still is fairly heavy through most of the course, though the wind, to some degree, has died down. And behind us, off to the west of the track, where the weather is coming from right now, the skies have begun to clear. So they'll make a decision as whether or not to stop this race or keep it under yellow, anticipating that they can get a green flag and won't go back to racing at any moment. For Rick Mears, part of the course is partially dry. Part of it is very wet. The green flag comes out, and we are in a sprint race to the finish under most strange conditions.
Rick got a tremendous jump on the field. This will help him with such few laps left in the race, Paul.
And Danny Sullivan in second place tries to carve up through the field, gets around Bettenhausen, and hopes that he can now mount a challenge against the leader of the race, Rick Mears. As they went by, it was 7 laps to go.
You can see the track starting to dry up exceptionally quick. It might be a factor whether the rain tires are going to last even the 7 laps that are left in this race.
Perfectly dry in this section of the track. That's eating away at those rain tires. Here comes Danny Sullivan with Al Unser Jr. in third place, just behind. They're trying to close in as best they can. One car separates them and the leader, Rick Mears, as he tiptoes off the corner. But they are very definitely within striking distance.
What's going to happen now, and you might be able to catch the guy in front of you, but you're going to have to get offline to make the pass. Offline's going to be wetter, more slippery, so it's going to give the advantage to the leader at this point.
Different conditions, different sections of the course. There's Danny Sullivan, the 18 car, running in second, and he, in fact, is closing in on Eddie Cheever. But look at the back end of that car twitch.
Well, Danny's got the leg in it, no question about it. To try to catch the leader, he's got to jump the car sideways. That's going to be hard on those rain tires.
Rick Mears for Penske at the front of the field, and then right behind the 2 Rick Gallis cars, teammates Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Jr. Roger Penske keeps a close track of his car, as little Al is actually challenging his teammate in a battle for second.
Well, he gave him a good run at it. What would be a little disappointing to Gallis is if the 2 teammates would happen to take each other out here this late in the race. But they're both after the win, and there's no rules or regulations. It's who can get there the quickest.
And would that happen, Mario Andretti is sitting in 4th place, and he would move up into second. Look at little Al, a different line off of the corner as he searches for traction.
Yeah, exceptionally different lines getting off. Little Al's trying anything he can, but to get off line, he's in the wetter area, but he's got to run it, Danny, here.
Boy, he takes a strong run, locks the brakes up going down into the corner, and makes the pass. Boy, you talk about daring.
Yeah, that's a good effort. You know, you just don't know if it's going to stop or not. You got to be so gentle with the brake pedal. If you just lock a tire up for an instant, it gets the car to sliding, and you just can't get it back when it's wet.
I would bet, because both pit crews could see the start of that, they just closed their eyes and then ran over for the TV to see who came out on top.
Well, I'm not sure Al didn't have his eyes closed right here. Good move. You can see the vision for Al wasn't very good as he pulled out from behind. But he gets back. He gets back into the dry area pretty quick, and that might have saved him.
So Al Unser Jr. maneuvers around Danny Sullivan. Rick Mears is still the leader of the race, and he sits 4 seconds ahead of Al Unser Jr. There is Rick, and here comes little Al, the new second-place car, followed by Danny Sullivan, then Emerson Fittipaldi with Bobby Rahal making a charge. Field. Eddie Cheever, again, is right there. Look at the back end go on Rick's car. That's what he's got to watch out for.
Yeah, he does. It jumped right out. Cheever's putting a little pressure on him. If Eddie can get the lap back and somehow get a yellow, he can, pull all the way around the back of this pack and really help his chances out.
Looking ahead from Eddie Cheever's car to Rick Mears. Cheever runs in 8th place, 1 lap behind the lead. 5 laps to go in the run here at Surfers Paradise.
I'll tell you what, Rick's doing a great job for a guy that's not noted to be a great road racer. Little Al isn't closing that gap as fast as most people thought he might.
And Eddie Cheever tries the leader of the race, Rick Mears, and Rick very wisely pulls way offline. Apparently, he is well aware of Cheever's position on the racetrack, but Eddie Cheever's driving like he was just taking the lead.
Well, Rick's aware of where everybody's at, but he can't give up too much because Al's sniffing at the back of that car pretty heavily right now.
And look at Eddie Cheever begin to pull away now. He is clearly, with that Ford Cosworth Power, the fastest thing on the circuit as Rick Mears begins to protect his position with Al Unser Jr. on the charge.
See, they're looking for the dry spots on the racetrack now, trying to save the softer rain tires. The rain tires are a lot softer compound. They need the wetness to keep them cool, because as they get hot, they go away a lot quicker.
A challenge beginning to develop for the lead of the race. Rick Mears now trying to close on Eddie Cheever, and Al Unser Jr. closing on Rick Mears. We're talking 2 different engines here with different power ranges. Could that slow Rick Mears down?
Well, I'm not sure if it could. Rick having the newer Chevrolet motor with a little more horsepower, they might have the electronics and the softer motor in Al's car, the little less horsepower that he complained about earlier, might be an advantage in the wet.
Rick Mears still runs in front. Al Unser Jr. just behind continues his challenge. And now Emerson Fittipaldi is closing up behind little Al as Emerson Fittipaldi assumes 3rd place.
Well,
and Danny Sullivan fades.
Yeah, Emo is all over Al right now, and Al's just about got the gap shut up on Rick. So, we're going to have a barn burner here, Paul.
So the Penske cars now straddle 2nd place car as Shelley Unser keeps track of her husband, little Al. He rides in 2nd place.
I can give you audio.
And the fight closes up even more. Look at Fittipaldi as he comes up right behind Al Unser Jr. That's Bobby Rahal that rides in 4th place just behind Fittipaldi, the new black and gold livery on Rahal's new team. Rick stretches it out a little as Fittipaldi mounts a challenge on Al Unser Jr. He's alongside. Can he hold the line? He does. The Penske cars run 1st and 2nd.
That's a great move by Emo. Again, he got a little run off the corner and was able to outbrake him getting into the corner, and just a good move by that Penske car.
Now, with Emerson Fittipaldi up to protect the position, Rick Mears lights it up and goes around Eddie Cheever as Roger Penske keeps an eye on both of his cars on the circuit.
Rick is probably one of the greatest drivers at pulling out a little bit extra late in the race. The adrenaline flow has got to be controlled, and Rick is one of the great ones at controlling that adrenaline flow, especially late in the race.
There are 3 laps to go, and this is the first race of the season. And Rick Mears and Emerson Fittipaldi, the teammates, are leading it here and now. That's Bobby Rahal as he chases Al Unser Jr. Penske cars 1 and 2.
You can see Rick, he's jumping all over the throttle. He's got it by the neck right now.
So Rick Mears out in front. Fittipaldi closes. Rahal now closes down on the back end of Al Unser Jr. First 4 positions all fighting here at Surfers.
Have you ever created or invented a product?
Paradise. Emerson Fittipaldi has now cleared Eddie Cheever. And the Penske cars run 1st and 2nd. Al Unser Jr. is 3rd, but if he is to make any challenge at all with 2 laps to go, he's going to have to move around Eddie Cheever. But here's the question, Tom Sneva. Some of the course is wet, Some of it is very dry. They are on rain tires. Those dry sections really have to be eating at those tires.
Well, they certainly do. And what we're seeing is Emmo was a little bit quicker than Rick when it was dry out earlier in the race. And as the track's drying, Emmo is closing the gap. So we're getting closer to a dry track situation. Emmo's car was a little better early in the race, and it looks like it still is.
The word teammates only vaguely applies now because Roger Penske has them both turned loose. And Rick Mears will have to hold off a challenge from his own teammate. It's a situation I suspect the two of them love.
Well, here comes Emmo on the inside. Oh, he locks it up.
Grab the line, locked him up, gets in ahead of Rick Mears. Fittipaldi has the lead, but can he hold on to it? Rick Mears is right there and challenging again.
A great move by Emmo. They both had to lock him up a couple times to try to get those maneuvers handled.
And I don't think Rick Mears is going to think that's the end of it. But Fittipaldi, who has in the past been brilliant in the rain, proves to be that way again as he gets around Rick Mears, really using a wet and dry section of the course to accomplish it. So Fittipaldi in front for the first time today with Mears chasing.
The only question now is, did Emmo have to use the tires up a little too severely to go from 10 or 20 car lengths back to get the lead? That'll be the question. Maybe Rick's tires are going to last just that little bit longer.
And Fittipaldi comes off the course, cuts across one of the chicane gravel pits, maintains the lead.
That's what you call getting away with one, Paul.
Now, how do they interpret that? They did say, Tom Sneva, that if you improved your position or your time by cutting across a chicane, that they would penalize you. He didn't improve his position. Probably leave it alone, right?
Yeah, I would think so. He locks them up, and when you lock up the front tires, you just can't turn the car. Exactly what happened. He got through it pretty smooth, though, and I think he's going to get away with one.
Two positions remain the same with Fittipaldi in front. Mears runs in second. Al Unser Jr., the third-place car, is well back. And Bobby Rahal comes around Little Al, and Rahal picks up third place. So Bobby Rahal up to third as Al Unser Jr. continues to fade.
I don't know if Rahal's going to have enough time.
Look at Fittipaldi as he works around a slower car, Barbazza.
This is probably some of the toughest conditions when you got the wet and the dry situation. If you get offline just a little bit, catch a puddle or whatever, just like what happened to Emmo, you lock up a tire and it could cause you a serious problem. But I think Emmo now, this late in the race, if he can keep it on course, should be okay.
So Fittipaldi now with Rick falling back just a bit. Rahal in second place, Al Unser Jr. third. Danny Sullivan sits in fourth place. The two Penske cars, these two brand new Chevrolet engines, the Chevy Indy V8B engine, as they take a look at Nick Fenoro's white flag, indicating one more lap around this 2.79-mile circuit at Surfers Paradise. We suggested at the beginning of the show that these first races of the year are most unusual, and this certainly proves it.
It's going to quiet the critics on reliability for the new Chevrolet engine. Obviously, they've done their homework. The Penske car, a brand new engine car combination, and here their last lap, they're running 1-2.
It does not appear that Mears can challenge his teammate at all, and so he very wisely begins to drop back as Emerson Fittipaldi out in front. Mears in second. Rahal now closing just a little bit on Mears, but not close enough to cause any damage on this last lap. There's the interval back to Rahal. You just got a glimpse of it. Fittipaldi gestured around by Ross Bentley, who points Fittipaldi to the inside. On this, the final lap of the race.
Boy, those are little kind of help you really need in traffic late in the race for a guy to see you coming and give you enough room to get by without causing any trouble.
Ross Bentley out of Vancouver, Canada, certainly saw the leader coming and waved him to the inside of the course. So number 5, Emerson Fittipaldi, completing now his final lap. Only hoping that that new engine and these rain tires hold up through the end of this race. Look at Fittipaldi. He's been sitting back in the order through most of the day. And here, after a rain shower in the closing laps, Fittipaldi is able to surge forward, pick up the lead of the race, and drives on to the first win of the 1992 season. The final turn complete, and Emerson Fittipaldi now sees the twin checkered flags, and Emerson Fittipaldi has won. as Rick Mears screams across the line in second place. It's 1-2 for the Penske team.